Hey everybody, welcome to the Daily Friend. It is a new week, a Monday morning. I have the gentleman looking very sprightly today. Marius, good morning.
Morning, Sikhle.
Terence, hello.
Hello, hello.
And my good sir, welcome back from France.
Good morning.
Guys, it's a jam-packed episode, so I'm going to jump straight into it. Helen Zeller on Twitter, white privilege, black privilege, but really the liberal argument is what she made on this. It was very funny, wasn't it? France, what were your thoughts on that?
You know, it's simple. It's about stereotypes.
Yeah.
In this organization, in 1929, stereotyping people because of their race was something that we thought was unacceptable. Mm-hmm. And in 2019, for us, 90 years later, it remains the same thing. You cannot assign attributes to people because of the color of their skin. That's the point that I think Helen made quite well, and I think it's a point that needs to be defended. And it's mad, in fact, that we've become a society that thinks that it can make calls about people, their character, their contribution to society, only on the basis of their race, and carry that off in public. And I think the academics and so on that are doing it need to rethink what has happened to them, because they're starting to sound, and they shouldn't, they're starting to sound like many of the race nationalists and so on. This organization was established to oppose a very long time ago.
Absolutely. And that was the really funny part about it. Is essentially, she, and I did a vlog on this yesterday. I made the point that, she put their own arguments on them. She put them to them, and it was very funny to watch the sort of grouping of individuals who usually espouse these ideas then have to do the mental gymnastics of dispelling the idea, for example, of there being a black privilege, while at the same time retaining their idea that there is a white privilege. It's those sort of inconsistencies in this sort of postmodernist type thinking, isn't it, really, that we're seeing. Marius, your thoughts on this?
It's. I think Helen Zeller did show up some of the race nationalists on Twitter, but
there's a broader debate, though, isn't it, beyond Helen and really the liberal position of viewing the individual as exactly that, the individual.
Well, I mean, that's most any liberal society should. I mean, that's what at the core of liberalism is about, seeing people as individuals first. But I do think it shows you how Helen Zeller was tethered by her DA membership or being the Premier of the Western Cape.
Absolutely.
Because she's obviously gone out.
Dropped the atomic bomb on social media, didn't she?
She's gone off the reservation. Yeah,
but it's lovely, though. It's lovely to see individuals actually beginning, especially liberals beginning to retake the narrative and lead the debate online, and to really bring people back to the center, if you will, because things got a little crazy. This actually makes me segue to this next piece. Terence, you wrote a lovely piece in the Daily Friend. Remember, guys, you'll find all our writers on the Daily Friend website, www.dailyfriend.co.za. Terence, great piece. Are we anti-racist for the right reasons? Just a choice quote here, which had me sort of in a guffaw of laughter earlier on. The comments by the deputy chairperson of the SAHRC, the Human Rights Commission, Ms. Priscilla Jana, who confirmed that it's the Institute's position that black people involved in a racial incident should be treated more leniently than whites. According to her, that's because of a historical context. What the hell is going on there?
Well, look, I think that we have to take this apart carefully.
Yeah.
We shouldn't get stuck in the trap of saying that this is about double standards. Double standards are evident here, but the whole postulate of democratic South Africa was that it was going to be founded on the basis of human rights. These are entitlements which everyone should have equally, which are in a sense they have to stand above your historical context. To violate these entitlements, whether you say that they're the gift of nature or the gift of God or something inalienable for a democratic polity, they have to exist beyond our history. In fact, they refute those pathologies.
Absolutely, that's the whole notion of the rule of law.
Exactly. Well, more than that.
Yeah.
But to say that an abuse to one person is somehow less of an abuse because of his particular racial background or his ascriptive attributes, that cannot be reconciled with the idea of human rights. So it's particularly jarring for me to see this come out of that stable.
Yeah.
Now, going back to what you were saying about the white privilege, black privilege.
Yeah.
I remember as a student, we got a new housemaster in our residence, liberation theologian, friend of Chris Harney's, etc., etc., etc. And he said, race is a concept with no sociological value. He will not tolerate anything that smacks of racism. I wonder today whether he would be able to keep his job for saying that.
That's
I remember Pello Jordan on the Dr. Pello Jordan on television taking on someone from the old Conservative Party, saying black is beautiful is racist. We can't think in these terms. It's amazing how we've swung this around. And my question and what I addressed there was: are we opposed to racism because it's from essentially a nationalist point of view that don't do it to people like me and people under my protection, or is it because we believe that the whole idea of what the good society looks like is one in which these rights, this sense of dignity is something that everyone can lay equal claim to, and it's very disturbing that the sort of official narrative is tending in that former direction.
Well, again, just maybe as a final point, if anybody wants to jump in, it comes back to the ideas, right? The ideas that are beginning to permeate, they've taken root in society. Postmodernist ideas, the idea that, various aesthetic things about us ascribe to us our identity, for instance, or they say more about us than actually who we are intrinsically as individuals, as people, that we're not individuals according to them, that we belong to groupings, and these groupings come with a group morality or a group guilt of association, for example, if you're white and what they call whiteness, for example. It's filtering into institutions that are meant to protect all South Africans, such as the Human Rights Commission. I mean, it's something I speak of a lot in my speech.
But it also triggers now the counter-reaction, because the sort of postmodernist critical race theory crowd have had a pretty good run in the public domain, in the media and academia for a couple of years. And their arguments haven't often been challenged as aggressively as they should have been challenged. And they're arguments that really only survive until they are challenged.
Yeah.
It takes only the slightest critical scrutiny to bring out the internal contradictions. And I think that is now starting to happen.
Absolutely.
And I think it's a very good thing, and it's to be encouraged. And it's something certainly that the IRR is investing more and more time and effort in doing. And when we do so, we find that we get a relatively reasonable reception to those arguments.
Because it speaks to what most South Africans and most people are. They're not the sort of think along racial lines types. They're in the middle, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's a long-standing argument here too, that most South Africans are moderate, sitting in the middle. They respect each other across lines of race and class. They actually want to work together to create a better society. And the lines that divide us as a society are not absolute when it comes to questions of race.
Absolutely.
And the people who sit on the side of seeking to drive and deepen those cleavages in society and polarize are actually on the wrong side of public opinion, and ultimately, in our country's case, perhaps on the wrong side of history.
Guys, look out for more writing from the analysts here on this topic as we dismantle these bad ideas. Look out for tweets from me on this and more videos, especially vlogs and other content. Marius, let me then perhaps smoothly segue to you on demographics to an extent. South Africa is becoming more of a urbanized society. This has implications for everything, including elections.
Well, over the past 20 years, about 20 years ago, 50% of South Africans lived in cities. This is about 2/3 now. That's got implications for the country and for our politics. Cities are always kind of leaders in whatever country they are. What the trends that you get in Joburg or Pretoria or Cape Town or Durban, whatever, that's where South Africa is going to go in 10 or 15 years' time. That's how it happens in the rest of the world too. What happens in Paris, it's going to happen in France 10 or 20 years later, same as London, New York, whatever. So, but what so I just had a look at the metro results, just the election results in our 8 metros, so Joburg, Cape Town, etc. And there, the ANC was actually just under 50%, they were at 49.6%, so about 8 percentage points lower than their national results. And the DA was about 10 percentage points higher than their national results, at about 30%. So it shows you there's some quite big differences in the metros compared to the rest of the country. But there's something that this should actually worry the DA a lot. So the ANC in 2014, they had just got just over 50% of the votes in the metros. The DA got 33% of the votes. So they lost 3 percentage points compared to 2014 to 2019. and they lost around about 300,000 votes, like in real terms. That's actually more than what the ANC lost. And I made the point in this article what I wrote. Votes are for a political party equivalent of blood for a living creature.
Absolutely.
And
it's their
more
currency.
Exactly. And if the DA can't afford to hemorrhage votes at the same rate as the ANC comes with a much larger base than the DA. If the DA is losing votes at the same rate as the ANC, the DA has got a very, very tough future in front of it. And I mean, these results from the Metro show you the DA and the ANC both need to be very worried about their futures. I mean, the ANC is going to lose power soon, maybe as soon as the next election. And the DA, it's also now possible that they won't even be the biggest opposition party in the country very soon.
Scary prospect, that. Guys, remember more more pieces like these, on the Daily Friend, www.dailyfriend.co.za. A curious case of two Gumedes. One who wrote a piece, which I think I want us to discuss there, William Gumede, very respected opinionista, and a one Zandile Gumede, an embattled Durban mayor and former or current, I should say, Zuma ally. In fact, Zuma recently posted on Twitter a support video saying, these times will abate, my sister. Just keep strong.
Call her my leader as well.
So, Frans, I'm going to go straight to you. William Gumede, his piece, your thoughts.
Yeah, there's a concept in scenario planning called twin tabbing.
Right.
And it comes from apparently how an oil tanker turns around, that before it turns its big rudder, there's a little rudder inside that big rudder that turns first, and it turns the big rudder, and then the oil tanker turns. And the one of the sort of principles of scenario analysis is, can you as an analyst find that little rudder that starts to turn? And maybe there are two of these that are starting to appear. And the one, I want to read it to you because I thought it was absolutely excellent. It's William Gumede writing in City Press yesterday, and he writes about the Democratic Alliance. And the bit I quote, he gets to the crux of the challenge facing any political party in the country. He writes that current BE and affirmative action have often been manipulated for corruption reasons. Merit-based affirmative action, which is what he calls it, which looks at disadvantage based on circumstances rather than colour is the answer, reinforced by being tough on racism, tribalism and ethnic chauvinism. Rich blacks, he writes, should be treated the same way as rich whites, as advantaged. Since blacks are the majority poor, they will automatically be the largest beneficiary of affirmative action.
That's right.
He goes on to write that the current BE model, which enriches a few politically connected political capitalists, should of course be immediately abolished. A more sustainable BE model would focus on creating assets more widely, making employees and local community shareholders, companies providing industrial relevant education, housing, not only for the employees but for local communities. And he goes on a bit. I think it is vastly significant that this has been written in City Press of all newspapers. It's a line of advocacy that we've explicitly pushed for about 6 years to replace BEE with what we call a new model of empowerment called EED, or Economic Empowerment for the Disadvantaged. And what it does at its core is it takes away race as the basis of policy and replaces it with actual established socio-economic disadvantage. And to see as prominent a commentator as Gumede write this in as prominent a newspaper as City Press on a Sunday, I think is a very significant change in the environment around empowerment policy, and a very good thing. And if you're looking for green shoots, so potential South African recoveries, want to see the upside, I think this is a very important one. In fact, if you were a hardened race nationalist, this piece should worry you a great deal, because it suggests that twin tabbing is a climate changing. Move to Durban. The mayor of Durban arrested for corruption. This person seemed to be quite closely associated with the Zuma side of the ruling party.
Yeah.
This isn't a giant fish, but this is actually quite a big fish. And if this prosecution proceeds, do you think the individuals in question will go quietly, or is this the beginning of the opening of the can of worms? And I remain a New Dawn skeptic, as you know, and people who watch the show know. But if you want me to start reassessing that position, show more pieces like that in City Press and show more actions such as that against the mayor of Durban. And just maybe we're starting to see that little rudder beginning to turn.
Absolutely. And maybe just final comments from the lads. There does seem, anecdotally, and it's very early days, there does seem to be a turning of the screws, if only against what was the Zoomites, if I can call them that, and maybe even broadly those who are seen to be corrupting the ruling party. There does seem to be a turning of the screws against them and an isolating of them. I mean, one Ace Magashule is finding himself ever increasingly a lone voice. Your thoughts on this, Terence and Morris?
Well, a lone voice, but a loud one.
Yeah.
Don't expect any pathology to go quietly. So yes, it is as you say, early days, but certainly, the prosecution of the mayor of eThekwini, one of the largest and wealthiest municipalities in what's become the ANC's growth capital, that's big. That's very big. On the question of reassessing BEE, I think that what is underplayed is the extent to which I think the current model is generally rejected, if for no other reason than because it is an elite thing. Now, I went on radio about a year ago to talk about our proposals, and it was very interesting. The audience was almost entirely black, the people who phoned in, and the host. And I said, this can't be done better. Its goal, its purpose is to create an elite. Whatever utility that has is now gone. And if we are serious about dealing with poverty, with unemployment, with things that affect not a 1% but a 50% plus of the population, we need to change. And it was very interesting the support that came in from the audience, but also from the host. One guy phoned me up and said, "Well, where was we never heard from the IRR during apartheid and whatever, and these are sort of neoliberals and whatever." And the host actually cut him short and said, "Have you read the report? Please go and read it before you say these things." And I very seldom found that, but it was small straws in the wind, perhaps. We hope.
Yeah, and I think something else starts to happen too, Terence, that amongst the relative sort of elites of society, the implications are ever better understood of what will happen to our country if we remain a society in which half of young people don't have work.
That's right.
In which very few young people get a decent matric.
Yeah.
The consequences, and perhaps one of the most effective counters to where we started, this critical race theory stuff, is that the consequences of that aren't going to be inherited by one of South Africa's race groups or one class group. We're actually all in this thing together. And that understanding is starting to emerge and filter. And I think as it starts to filter, there'll be more support for those little embryonic signs of reform, such as this very encouraging one that appeared in City Press on Sunday.
Morris, final thoughts?
Well, I think when people say why are you opposed to BE, I think a very easy answer is say because 40% of the country is unemployed, and we've seen inequality is seen by some in South Africa as important issue, and inequality in itself is not a problem, but huge inequality like we have here in South Africa is. But apart from that, the inequality amongst our race groups where it's been growing the most is amongst black people, because as we were saying, BE's benefited a relative elite. I mean, BE doesn't help a guy who's come from the Eastern Cape to look for work in Gauteng or whatever the case is, or guys selling Gauteng as the corner of William Nicol, and these guys aren't getting any of the benefits of BE. So something needs to change, and these benefits of the country's benefits need to be spread at a wider level.
It's not BE versus laissez-faire. It's not we're critical of BE as we are as an organisation, and we propose nothing else. The proposals are explicit. They're well set out in series of policy papers. Replace the basis of the current policy with actual socio-economic disadvantage. It's good and right to help people who need some support in getting into the middle classes. It's entirely consistent with the liberal tradition in this country. And it's a slur of the racial nationalists to say the critics of BE have nothing else other than that sort of Reagan style laissez-faire. I don't think that's accurate.
I mean, we
at all.
just focus on the actual groupings that require that assistance. The idea that those who are at the bottom should be assisted, with getting an income, for example, from that income building savings, from those savings buying options.
And in the case of our country, the beneficiaries will be black in
Absolutely.
the main, because the bulk of people who are poor happen to be black.
That's right.
And if you set out the whole argument, as we've done so in bits here in this little bit this morning, becomes very difficult, I think, for any reasonable person, unless you pretend not to understand what we mean, to justify the current policy over the proposals that we are beginning to make.
Guys?
I was going to say, France made a mistake by thinking that our critics are reasonable sometimes.
Guys, maybe on that note, thank you very much. Remember, guys, you can find our pieces, you can find our position papers on the IRR website. And of course, in terms of our writers here, our pieces on the Daily Friend website at www.dailyfriend.co.za. I'll keep drumming it in because we want you guys to read our material, arm yourself with the arguments that can begin to change the narrative in this country. And as always, our writers here, and thank you to you, gentlemen, depend on your support. Remember to support the Institute of Race Relations and support our colleagues at the Daily Friend by becoming a friend of the IRR. You can do this by SMSing your name to 32823. An SMS will cost you R1. Terms and conditions to apply. And hey, if you don't like SMSs, you can do, or you can sign up, excuse me, for a monthly debit order via www.irr.org.za/join. As always, guys, we have other South Africans who are donating between 70 and 90 Rand a month, but it is those funds that get us into the fight and begin to assist us in reshaping the narrative. Guys, thank you so much. We'll see you on Wednesday on the Daily Friend.